Hey again, people, this is Christoph, and finally with a new tutorial. I know it's been a very long time. But I've planned for some time now to release something new, and incidentally, the company Ubiquity6 contacted me recently and they asked if I want to do a tutorial for their new smartphone app, which is called Displayland and which is a photogrammetry app which you can use to create your own photo scans of objects and put that into Cinema4D, for example, and create something out of it. So yeah, I said yes, and what you see now is what I've done with it. It's you see the statue. This is actually a scan from another user out of the Displayland community. The user is called Marco Poli, and I think it's from Florence in Italy, this statue. And yeah, I used it to create this short camera animation thing out of it. And I added a few lights, as you can see, and a bit of smoke to it. I will show you the process now, but before we go into that, let's have a quick look into what photogrammetry actually is. So photogrammetry is a technique or process to create 3D models out of real physical objects by the means of photography. So it means you take a lot of photos from the object, and then an algorithm will interpret this set of images and will generate a 3D shape out of it. And it will also create a matching texture out of it. So the advantage of this process is obvious. It's so much simpler to do it this way than by modeling this by hand and creating your own materials and do a lot of sculpting, because basically you just have to walk around the thing you want to capture, and then all the algorithm software stuff is in the background will do the work for you. The downside may be that you have to deal with some artifacts or irregularities in your scan that can happen, and you may also have a hard time getting small details really into your 3D mesh. And of course you need the object you want to scan at hand, otherwise it would be really hard to digitize it. But I think the main advantage is that you don't have to care about the material or the texture that is done by itself, and of course also you don't have to care about the 3D shape itself. So the process, as I mentioned before, is basically simple, or the idea behind it. You just take as many pictures as possible from as many different perspectives as possible. Although that might not always physically be possible, though that's always the goal. And then there are basically just two information the algorithm needs to create the 3D shape and the texture out of it, and that is the position of the camera and the image it took at that position. And in this illustration on the side here, you see like the white squares representing all the different pictures taken. So if you have like a 360-degree walk around your object, you will get a pretty nice 3D scan out of your object. But like in this example, it would be in real life pretty hard to go on top of the statue if you don't have a ladder at hand. So sometimes you have to compromise a little bit on what is possible physically. So, as mentioned before, the people from Ubiquity6 contacted me, and the app they are developing is called Displayland, and it's available for the Apple App Store as well as for the Google Play Store. You have to sign up to use the app, so you have to create an account, and it's also like a built-in community where you can share your scans with other people. You can follow other people, you can like the scans of other people, and you can do a little bit of editing in the app as well. So you can head to get.display.land and download it for yourself, try it out. And when you have downloaded this, the process is actually pretty simple. When you start the application, you just have to hit that plus button on the bottom, and what you can see here is me scanning that bird sculpture. And as soon as you have clicked the capture button, you just basically walk around the sculpture and the application is doing all the work for you. So this is me walking around this sculpture. The video is sped up a little bit, but the process takes between, I would say, 3 to 4 minutes, or maybe if you want to get a really detailed, good quality scan, I would suggest that you walk around it for like maybe 10 minutes. And you should start from farther away, and then at the end move a little bit closer to get also all the details in. And then if you have a look at the smartphone screen here on the left, you see that the application also shows kind of this point cloud thing, and the more points you get here, the better. And basically you want to fill that bar on the bottom as much as possible, although you can also do like a quick scan. You just have to hit that minimum level here, and then you're good to go to upload it to the Displayland service. So when you finished capturing, you again see the point cloud thing. When you finished capturing, you can create a name for your scan, and you can type in a location. So this was actually in Finland, and then you basically upload it. The file size can be quite large, so you want to be in a Wi-Fi probably. So in this case, for this bird sculpture, it was about 350 megabytes. And then as soon as it's uploaded, the Displayland service will do the processing and the calculation for it. And I think in this case, it took about an hour for the processing, but it obviously depends on the size of the scan you did. So if you only did a quick scan, a quick capture, then the processing might only take minutes, and if it's a very large scene, it could take up to 1 or 2 hours. So what you see here is now we are in the explore mode of the application and of my 3D scan, and in the edit mode you can actually crop, for example, the scene. You see there's a lot of stuff going on around the actual statue. So you can use this to crop it a little bit, that it's a little bit more nice. Although the cropping is not working for the import in Cinema as of now, but we come to that later. I skip back here a little bit. Now, if you want to get your 3D scan into Cinema4D, what you basically have to do for now is to share your scan with yourself. Basically, you can just copy the URL, for example, and then you go to your web browser and you can download it from there. Here we are on the Displayland webpage, and as you saw before, I just copied the link to my file. So I go into my web browser, paste that link into here, and then you can see we actually had the same view as before in the app, but here on the web browser. And again, here you can edit it. For example, you can crop it. Decide how much of the scene you want to import, not to import, but to display for other people. Speaking of import, this is actually not working for the import in Cinema4D. So when you download it in a second and we put that into Cinema4D, we'll see we get all the complete scene into Cinema. But that's no problem. We can easily delete all the stuff we don't need inside of Cinema. And yeah, to download it, you just hit your download button over here, and then you can decide which kind of 3D mesh you want to download. And for a Cinema4D import, we want to grab the OBJ 3D mesh. So we go and download, then you can decide what you're creating. And for example, now for the start, we just say not sure. We're just experimenting a little bit. You can submit it to give the people at Displayland a bit of feedback. And yeah, then when you downloaded that, you can go to your download folder and open the file. So you see this is the download now for this bird statue, and you basically get a texture map. So this is all the image the app captured from the scan. You get the OBJ file. This is basically the 3D mesh generated by the algorithm, and this is the material file which connects the 3D mesh to the texture itself. So let me import that into Cinema4D. You get this obj import dialog. We can just keep that as it is and hit OK. And then you will see that we have this scene now imported into Cinema. Now, there are two things you want to do, maybe to make that look a little bit more sophisticated. So you want to click on that material first, and then over here at the attribute manager you have the editor tab, and here under texture preview size you want to increase the preview size to this one, to this resolution. So by that you will see the real size or the real texture quality here in your preview editor view. Another thing, if you double click on your material, you see that there are quite a few channels still activated. Most of them we don't need. We just for now deactivate transparency, reflectance and the alpha channel, and yeah, now it looks much better. Now if you zoom in here, you can see that's actually quite a nice quality of this stone here. So very nice photo scan and very accurate 3D mesh of it. That's very nice. Also, I think these pipes came out quite good. When we come to the top, you see that the wings are not as perfect. But this is for two reasons. The one reason is that this material here from the sculpture, it's actually a reflective metal material that's very hard for the algorithm to calculate. And then the sculpture, as you saw in the video before, it's actually quite high, so I couldn't get as close as I want to those wings. And obviously I couldn't also get on top of the bird to capture it from the top. So this is why in the upper parts the quality might be not as perfect as as I wished it to be, but yeah, for obvious reasons. And now if we want to delete all the stuff which is going on around here, I think the easiest way for that is to just switch the views and go to your 2D views, and we go to the top view, and in the top view we can then actually see where our bird sculpture is. And what we can also do is we can go to the display settings, activate go route shading, so that not only the lines are visible but also the shading, and then you also see the texture. And then what you want to do is you want to switch to the surface mode so that we have access to the polygons, and you want to select the rectangle selection tool. We select just something like this, or maybe a little bit more, something like this. And then you can use the shortcut to invert this, which is U and I. So then this will be inverted. Or what you can also do is you can go to select and just hit the invert button here. And then you can simply hit the delete key on your keyboard, and all the unnecessary scene things will be gone. And from here on you can just basically have fun and experiment with your 3D scan a little bit. We actually wanted to talk about how I did the other statue, and as mentioned before, this is a statue from the user Marco Poli, and you find all the links also to the app, etc., in the description. And yeah, so the thing is, I saw that in the community. I did the Displayland app, and I thought it would be a cool thing to do something with this. I actually found out that I accidentally flipped it somewhere in between. So this is actually how the statue is in real life, and as you see in a moment that yeah, in my project it's flipped to the other side, but yeah, I think that's not big of an issue. So I did the same thing here as with the bird sculpture. I went into the top view and deleted all the unnecessary geometry around, and then I went into the details here a little bit and cleaned that up a little bit further. So here's the this scene. And I used, actually to render this, I used the Corona render engine, not the default Cinema4D render engine. And yeah, let's have a little look what this scene is made of. Just activate that stage object for now. So yeah, the basic setup is actually quite simple. I have just plane here on the bottom, and there's like a big tube around this scene, just like as kind of a backdrop, and the scene will be pretty dark, so actually put this kind of gradient texture on here, but we won't see that much of the background or the floor anyways. So the other thing I did is, of course, I added some lights in here, and let me show you those. So this is basically a simple light setup. We have like a red orange light here from the left side and a blue light from the right side, and then when we go to the top, we see we have a white light here from the top. And let me actually jump in here, and we throw on the Corona renderer, and I just deactivate all the effects for now, and let me render the scene here. And of course I turned off all the lights so we don't see anything. So let's start maybe with the top white light. So you see that's the light coming from the top. It's quite bright. And then we have the blue light from the right side and this more warm light from the left side, and that's gives us basically the basic lighting of this scene. One thing I did for the material, so keep in mind this are now Corona materials. The only thing I did is, besides to put in the texture map here for the diffuse channel, of course, is to give it a bit of reflection, a bit of a blurry glossiness in here. That's the only thing I changed for that material. The rest comes from the photo scan itself. So the tone mapping is on here again. So if I turn off all the post effects, you see that's basically how that looks like. So a large amount of that image is then basically coming from the LUT file here, and also from the tone mapping. And to make things a little bit more fancy in the end, there's also a bit of plume and glare in there, which you will see mostly in those like neon light tubes over here. So I added 2 of those. The first one is also like a red shining one, and the other one is more like a blue one. And the setup is also super simple for that. It's just basically 2 tubes, 2 cylinders. There's an inside cylinder which has this light emitting material, and the outside cylinder has this transparent glass-like material that looks like something like this. Yeah, and then if I activate the plume and glare, and we just wait a second for that image to re-render, you will see in a second that we get that nice plume effect on those tubes. The other thing I did is I added some smoke into the scene to make it, yeah, a little bit more mysterious, I guess. And this is just imported from another asset store, and the material itself is just basically a volumetric material, so with a bit of light absorption and scattering going on. And then that's how we get that nice smoke effect over here. So when it comes to the camera movement, that's actually a nice feature inside of Cinema4D, where you can use the stage object to animate different cameras together. So you can basically use it to cut between cameras, so then you don't have to worry about cutting in some other application at the end, and it's a very handy and easy to use feature. So what you basically do, you don't have to put all those cameras into the stage object. That's just for me to tidy the scene up a little bit. But what you can see here is that if I activate the cameras by itself and have the stage object deactivated, you see that this is just a very simple camera movement. So it's this camera movement from camera 1 is 100 frames long, and then when we switch to the next camera, you see it starts a bit earlier, but it would be sufficient if it would start at frame 100, and then it goes on to about frame 150. And this is the same now for all the other cameras. They just start to move as soon as the camera before has finished or has stopped. And so I took here like this 5 shots. This is just a basic zoom in to the statue, and then here the last camera is again like a slow rotation around the statue. And then what you can do is you add the stage object, which you find over here at the scene files, stage object. And the stage object has this property where you can put in the camera. And what you then basically do is you say for the first couple of frames I want to have the camera 1 in here, and then you decide basically just at what frame you want to put in another camera. So you put that in, hit the button over here, and as soon as you've done that, the stage object knows at which point you want to cut to the different camera. And so when I activate the stage object again and I play the timeline here, you can see that we have this nice cutting between the different camera angles and animations. And the good thing is that, for example, if you want to render that on the render farm, like on Rebus farm, they actually support this kind of setup, and you don't have to worry about rendering different cameras and scenes. You just upload your cinema file and let it render for a few minutes, and then this will be gone. Yeah, so that's the basic setup. And let me switch back here to inside of this presentation, and this is what at the end you will see. So I pretty much like the scan of the statue. I think there are only a few artifacts in there, but it's yeah, it's a super nice scan, and you can do a lot of different things with scans like this. Yeah, so that's the result. And now for the end, I just have like a few tips which I came across when I used the Displayland app. So it tends to work a bit better on outdoor scenes. It's also works for indoor scenes, but it's just a bit more clean and easy at outdoor scenes. I think it's because there's much more texture on outdoor objects and outdoor scenes, so that's why the algorithm can create something nice much more easily. Which comes to the other point, that it is quite difficult if you want to do an interior scan. If you have like white walls or solid painted walls, it's quite difficult for the algorithm to interpret that. Also, mirrors and reflective surfaces are also very tricky. That is still something which doesn't work too great. And yeah, the other tip is of course that the longer you walk around an object, the better it is, of course, for the fidelity of the scan. What works best is to start from far away and move closer at the end, and not the other way around. That turned out to give the best results. And also I find that if the object is too small, it can be a bit tricky. It's not impossible to do, but yeah, if the object you want to scan is very small, it's just more difficult to do. And actually, like with the bird sculpture, that was actually quite a good size, and the scanning went very fast, and the result is also, I think, pretty great. Yeah, so you find all the download links for the app, Displayland app, in the description, and try it out. It's fun to scan objects and put that into your 3D software and work with it, and it's a completely new way, I think, to get assets into your 3D software, as long as they're already existing in the real world. So I hope you like that, and yeah, see you soon on another tutorial here. Bye.